All right, Trails Collective World. Ian coming at you here with this round of Trails Collective Live. This is going to be originally airing on Tuesday, August 2nd. And those who are catching it after the fact, thanks so much for tuning in, commenting, plugging in a little bit early in the week. This week, my wife and I are celebrating our 15th anniversary, and I'm technically going to be trying to run the Pemi Loop on our anniversary. So we're trying to celebrate a little bit early. So if you're tuning in and catching us, thanks for joining us. Also starting this episode a little bit early because our first guest, Kristian Morgan, who I'll bring in just a minute. Can you keep that on, Ellie? Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're just playing around. Ellie Pell playing with lights on me in the back end. Bring in Kristian Morgan, who is coming, I think, at us from across the big pond, which is wicked late on his end. So starting a little bit earlier as well. And we'll bring him through in just a couple minutes here. But thanks for tuning in. As always, if you are catching us live, feel free to drop some comments or questions into the Trails Collective's YouTube page or feed. You can also potentially get them through on the Trails Collective's Facebook live feed as well. In terms of what's coming at you this evening, we are going to intro here in just a minute, and then we'll bring in Kristian to dig in a little bit to his recent athletic, just all around athletic performance, which is the Appalachian Trail. You know, whether it's running, hiking, all around fitness, nutrition, I mean, all comes into play with such a mammoth effort, and a really impressive effort it was. So we'll dig into a little bit that, maybe his coaching as well. We will then kick it over to bringing in Lee Berube and Michelle Merlis on the Escarpment, one of the most classics. Show me, I can see your picture there, Kristian, in the back end. Lee and Michelle on Escarpment, one of the most classic races nationally as well as in the Northeast. And then we will close out with a little bit on bringing in somebody I've not connected with yet, Shannon Surdyk, who just took the women's win at Wakely Dam, another classic, very Northeastern and Beast Coast event. So pretty full episode. Thanks for tuning in with us live, and feel free to drop comments in if you're watching it after the fact live, and we can try to catch them. So just some intro pieces here. There were some FKT sets this past week or two, a number of them. Davis Path and Trip Pyramid Slide in New Hampshire, Cooper Kill in New York, Camel's Hump, Kingdom Heritage Trail in Vermont. There are a couple big ones, though. Vermont 4,000ers, the peaks 4,000 feet or over in Vermont. We focus a little bit on the Adirondack 4Ks as well as the New Hampshire round. So in this case, women's self-supported was just thrown down with 11 hours, 53 minutes, lower the prior mark by 6 hours. In my notes, which would be a key piece of information, who just set that, I'm going to have to follow up with you there rather than search for that webpage in the moment. I just forgot to note it, so my apologies, but a pretty big mark and burly effort. Another one of the most iconic, New Hampshire's Pemi Loop, 28.7 miles with 9K gain. One of the most competitive Beast Coasts in terms of FKT history. Jake Aceto, an individual to me, and I'm guessing most everyone else in the trail running world, burst silently onto the scene here in dropping 4 minutes off of Jack Kunzel's unsupported mark with a new unsupported FKT of 5 hours and 32 minutes. Just flying. And I talked a little bit earlier today with Andrew Drummond a bit, who is all things whites. And just, it's pretty cool to see these individuals who are just somewhat unknown, at least to us, come onto the scene and just throw down or lay down these awesome or incredible efforts. And then what does that say? You know, just how there's so many more people that I think could be entering our space, and whether these marks are just soft or whether it's just these just amazing individuals that maybe don't formally enter the scene in terms of some of the races, so are relative unknowns. But in any case, Jake Aceto, just a really awesome mark at 5 hours, 32 minutes. Let's see, hot list events that are open, about to cap out. I gave you the heads up that the Mozo Double Up was about to cap out last week. That is a beautiful race up in Stowe, Vermont, and it did indeed cap. Another one that's about to cap is the Bold Coast Bash, running in Cutler, Maine in November. This is one that I did last year, and an absolutely just spectacular course. So that is also about to cap. The 10.5 mile version already has, and there's 9 spots remaining in the 50K. So that is one to check out and get on now if you're so inclined. All right. So, Kristian, I'm going to weave you in. And how's it going?
Yeah, it's good, man. Thanks to it's good to be on the show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And often I'll try to hop on with somebody, kind of check audio or whatever. I'm assuming that you're responding to me. At least my my audio is coming through, and I can hear yours, so it looks like we're good.
Yeah.
So for those not already familiar with Kristian, just a brief intro here. So Kristian was born in most on the webpage, which you can by all means check out, and he can cue us into that here in a bit too. Kristian was born in England, grew up in Australia, and has spent time living in Ethiopia, Italy, and New York in his formative or adult years. Are you coming to us from England at the moment? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, I just got back to London a couple of days ago.
Yep. And so what? It's about midnight there. Is that where we're at?
Exactly. Yeah, like about 6. Yeah, just after midnight. Yeah.
Yeah. So by Appalachian Trail kind of through hike standards, you should kind of just be getting going with your evening shift here at midnight. You should be, not ready to tap out for the night yet. So maybe this is all right on your clock.
No, I'd usually be asleep if I was on the AT by now. Hopefully.
All right. Yeah. So Kristian has traveled the world running and racing some of the most beautiful and prominent endurance events. Truly, some of the most iconic races are in his history or lineup. With the most recent effort on the AT, he now sits second in all-time fastest efforts, and is former holder of Britain's national trail, the 630-mile Southwest Coast Path. So, man, a lot there. And then also, are you coaching full-time, or is that just on the side?
Yeah, coaching. I guess, I mean, I would say full-time, but I'm also sharing that with my trail running. So, I have a kind of a life-work balance, so part of my life I work, part of my life I enjoy. And I enjoy my work as well. So, yeah, part-time, full-time.
And an awesome blend to be able to, I guess, find your passions and fusion, for sure, find the fusion between those. So hopefully we can dig into kind of all parts of that, because it seems like you're drawing pretty effectively on life experiences, and you've also been maybe pretty intentional about how you've directed your life experiences or path here. So so we won't necessarily go maybe chronologically, because I do want to dig in a little bit to your past and maybe how that influences your coaching. But let's just start with, because it's maybe most I guess in the foreground would be the most recent Appalachian Trail attempt. So you had referenced, I shouldn't say completion. Attempt was not the right word there. The AT effort. So you had been working on that, or conceptualizing or working on that, for like 4 years or so. Did I see that reference?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So let's just start there. And in terms of 4 years ago, I mean, what was the cue, or what was the peak of the interest toward the AT to begin with?
Yeah. Being invited to help Carol, my friend Carol Sabé, go and attempt his own go at breaking the record, and he was successful. That was in 2018. Yeah, I spent like 15 days with him on trail, pacing. I wouldn't call it pacing, I'd call it more like muling. So running behind him on trail, carrying some items, food items, drink items, and so on. And that was my kind of introduction to the trail, and what sparked my ambition, I'd say. That experience with Carol in 2018. I did 15 days with him, and I ran about up to 36 miles a day during his attempt with Carol.
And you got to see, where were you in that mix?
I started on his day 12 and finished on his day 27. So mostly in Virginia, I'd say, and that middle kind of section. Yeah. So we didn't touch on the whites up north or anything like that.
And so you were, I don't know, maybe a blessing, maybe not. I mean, I guess you're no stranger to a glutton for punishment with the events you've taken on for yourself in terms of the endurance aspects and angles. But I guess maybe you also didn't see some of the maybe relative carnage that sometimes happens in the later miles, or the kind of northern portion when you get into some of those stretches.
No, I did not. Not in 2018. I did the next year, but no, I mean, I experienced the kind of lesser violent terrain. Let's say,
Yeah.
less violent terrain is probably a good way to put it. Yeah, the middle section.
And then it was enough where it just kind of planted the seed. Then it was like, yeah, I mean, I guess there's so many routes that you could do worldwide. And maybe was that just because it was your point of exposure through his effort, or still, I guess why the AT of pretty much anything that you could pick off worldwide?
Yeah, so like up to 2018, I'd had 18 years running experience. Did my first marathon in the year 2000 and had a mixture of trail running and ultra running, but never really being part of any kind of world record attempt. So, entering you can call it like an expedition, with a crew and a goal, and there was no race bib, so it was something unique to the crew. No kind of organization from any kind of race organizer or anything. So yeah, I mean, up to that point, I think I'd entered already over 100 marathons and ultras. So I was pretty familiar with what it was like to enter a 100-miler or an ultra marathon. But to enter a world record attempt, that was something completely new to me, and the excitement around that, the focus, the margin for error, the margin for success was so different to just entering an ultra marathon. It really just appealed to me, yeah, compared to everything I'd experienced in the past 18 years, for sure. Yeah.
And in those 18 years, you've seen a lot of varied, you've been around the world. I mean, you've seen some big mountains. You've also seen some technical terrain. I guess the AT for sure has a lot of technicality, a lot of versatile terrain, maybe more humidity than some parts in the world, maybe more technical footing than some parts of the world. But it's also not necessarily, well, I guess I'm going to change that. I mean, I guess I still maybe I'm even jaded in terms of, even though I'm from here, kind of the Beast Coast mentality. I was like, but it's not these huge mountains. But then I stop and I'm like, dude, that's not the case. I mean, you get in there and you realize that there's still these big mountains, and they still have a lot of vertical out there, and you still have a lot of exposure, and even if not more so. I guess, how did it compare with some of the other parts of the world that you've been, and some of the longer efforts that you've been in terms of terrain or technicality?
Yeah, so after I helped Carol, a couple of weeks after, I went and entered the UTMB in Chamonix, France, the Ultra Tour de Mont Blanc. And obviously up to that point, I hadn't experienced Maine, or Pennsylvania, is also known by the through hikers as Rocksylvania. So up to that point, it was, it was trail. There was elevation, there was humidity, but now looking back with my experience of Maine, for example, the trails in Maine and the trails in, say, Chamonix, I mean, there's no comparison. They are some of the most toughest, evil trails. I mean, they say Maine has they say it has a nasty treat for you, and they're not joking, man. I mean, those trails are hard to hike, forget trail running. They're really hard to hike. I spoke to a speed hiker back in 91. Scott Grierson went up against David Horton. And I was speaking to Scott Grierson, we're good friends, straight after. He was, there present during the attempt. And he said, just hiking those trails in Maine is tough, let alone trying to trail run them, So, I mean, yeah, the question you asked was, how do they compare? I mean, the trails are ridiculously tough up in Maine. I say Maine particularly, and then for me, an experience which I'll never forget was Pennsylvania. I lost part of myself there. I mean, it was so tough. Part of me died, in Pennsylvania, and I came out a better person because, I appreciated what was left of me when I came out. So yeah, man, there's something else. There are some tough ass trails for sure.
And I don't remember whether it was on maybe a post that you made in processing recently, maybe on your Facebook page, or somebody else quoted it. But I think it was somebody had told you in advance that, and I can't remember who it was, that it was going to, I guess, take a piece of you, or you're going to leave changed, or you were just going to be a different person, like on the other side.
Carol said something to me early on before I attempted, when I told him just at the end of 2018. He said the words were, he said, "You'll get more than you expect."
That's it.
Right? Or you'll experience more than you expect. And I never really, it kind of freaked me out a bit, because I thought, what's he talking about? What? I really just had no idea. And in 19, I failed. I didn't know what he was talking about. In 21, I failed. I didn't know what he was talking about. This year, finally, I understand what he means. And I think it takes 2,000 miles to understand that. It takes completing the AT. And yeah, that was significant and profound. And I made a post about it. And yeah, now I understand what he means. And it's, I feel privileged to be part of that very small, significant amount of people who have been able to speed, hike, run that trail. Yeah.
And is that something that I guess you just internalize, and it's tough to kind of wrap words around it? I mean, I guess how would you describe finding more than you expect to find, I guess, out there? Is that really just something that just touches the core and it's not really 4 words? Or is it something that you can put your fingers on or your phrasing on and say, this would be an example of how I found more than I'd expect to find, right? I mean, you're out there before. I mean, you previewed it, you got sections in, yet you didn't necessarily maybe you go each time you come out with something new. And that's just the nature of the beast. But having been through, I mean, I guess, how would you answer on what you found that was more than you'd expect to find, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. And I'm okay at articulating myself, but putting it into words for someone is impossible, because only can you understand if you experience. I understand now, because not through anyone explaining to me, but by experiencing what Carol went through, what Scott Jurek, what Carl Meltzer, Andrew Thompson, all these people went through. So that's something which only someone who experiences the trail, and whether it be even a thru hiker. I mean, those guys are out there for 6 months. Then maybe they even find what it's all about. But to put it into words, I couldn't really put it into words. I mean, maybe the obvious cliche kind of stuff. When you think you're done, you're not done, and you've got another. I can't put it into words.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
yep, totally fair. All right, so now back up a bit. So you had your initial exposure with Carl, and then you went at it a couple times on your own. So what was the first time through, I guess, your mental, physical, I guess, space in a preview, or came up short? Where did you feel like you could have made corrections that would have fed into a second? And then where did it maybe not happen again, where you went at it a third time? And kind of like, what were you learning each time that you went back that were kind of takeaways for into, I guess, this effort, where you felt either more prepared in certain ways, whether it be mentally, physically, logistically? What was the progression to get you on this most recent successful kind of completion?
I mean, for sure, persistence. I didn't give up. Carol got the record on his first attempt, but he also had the Pacific Crest Trail for his, his backup experience. So he didn't go into the Appalachian Trail a novice. I went in there somewhat thinking I was experienced, because I'd been with Carol for 1/3 of his attempt. I'd seen it from the trail, I'd seen it from the crew. So I went in there, I guess, with a level of innocent arrogance, thinking I kind of know what this is all about. But doing 36 miles a day compared to doing 50-something miles a day for 15 days compared to doing 40-something days is uncomparable, really. It's actually, I thought it was similar. So I think when I went in the first time, I thought I had the answers in 2019, and it didn't get me that far. It got me as far as Hot Springs, or 6 days in. So then in 2021, when I went back last year, I thought I'd learnt by my mistakes, I thought, okay, the first time I went in naive, arrogant, thinking I knew the answers. I realized I didn't. So now I feel I've learned, and now I know what it takes. I thought I knew what it took for last year. And I went in and I realized that, again, pretty much hot spring, 6 days in, that I was wrong. I didn't have the answers, So this year, I think I just went in with the humbleness of doing my best, and just realizing I didn't have any answers. I don't have the answers from going in with Carol. I don't have the answers from making my own mistakes. I'm just going to go and I'm just going to do my best. But I think the thing is, I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust the crew. And took it day by day. And just every day I got one step closer towards Katahdin. And eventually I didn't achieve what I wanted to, which was to set a new fastest known time, but I got pretty close, and I didn't give up in the process, because a lot of people, okay, let me take that back. Some people in life don't continue when they don't have the A goal, but I decided to continue anyway, with a lot of encouragement from Carl Meltzer. And I'm pleased I did. I'm really pleased that I continued to push on. So I guess it's down to just perseverance and just keeping on and not giving up. And it's kind of like a metaphor. When I was out there on the trail, I think I fell over about 100 times this year in total. Started off 1 or 2 times a day, or once every 2 days, and then by the end it was 4 times a day. So calculate that to about 100 times, and it was the same thing every single time. I fell down and I just got back up, brushed my hands on my shorts, and I carried on running. And it felt like this kind of physical metaphor to the entire journey: fall down and just get back up. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but just that perseverance, and then the support as well. I feel I had better support this time from the crew, and also some amazing people helping me out with moral support as well. Yeah.
Do you feel like fitness makes as big a difference in some regards for such a mammoth effort like that? I mean, are you coming in where you're I don't know, doing a certain strength regime, you're doing a certain amount of mileage per week, you're doing whatever that might look like? Does that make as big a difference as it might in, like, I don't know, training to race 100-miler like over here? Like, could you, I guess almost what I'm getting at is I see some of the races that I've directed over the years, particularly 100-miler, sometimes those who come in a little underprepared in some ways, or less fit, actually have a higher chance of finishing than those that come in uber fit for themselves, because they come in maybe overly confident and they're more apt to go out too hard or explode or pull the plug. And those that come in less fit, they just don't. I mean, they conserve their energy differently. They're more open to, it's going to be ugly, but I'm just going to kind of persevere. And it seems like with something as mammoth of an effort as the AT, that some of those principles would apply, and whether that applied this round, if that's the case.
Yeah, I guess to be more specific, actually, to your question before. So in the previous 2 attempts, I'd done my training in London. Central London. I'd go in the parks, I'd find a hill, and I'd just repeat it like crazy. This year I actually had 6 months in North Thailand in the mountains. So, that's specific, isn't it? That's different. The mountain I was climbing was, to go out and back, was about 30 miles, and it would give me about 10,000 feet of gain total. So, I was almost preparing for what was up north in May, the Whites and stuff. In fact, when I got to the Whites, I felt that's what I was ready for. The flatter running sections. I hadn't done that much flat running. So, yeah. And to your question, yeah, I definitely think going in just thinking I think you just got to balance. Like, this isn't just a physical goal. This is more than a physical challenge. This is about mental endurance and coping with boredom as well. 16 to 19 hours of boredom. I don't want to disrespect the trail or the hobby of trail running, but let's be honest. There's only so many audio books you can listen to. There's only so much you can think out. There's only so much you can appreciate trees for. And then you start going to other places. But yeah, but definitely to be specific, I was definitely in a different environment, terrain and climate wise. Northern Thailand, in the mountains, on trails, in 80 to 90 degree Fahrenheit heat. So yeah, actually, to be fair, I definitely think that played a difference with my physical readiness. And also, don't forget that any physical training you do has an impact on your mental, your self-esteem, your self-confidence. So that I went in with higher confidence as well, but less arrogance, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, that sounds like actually pretty ideal build up. And did you go over there just for the build up? I mean, probably it's not like you just went to Thailand just to train for 6 months. What took you to Thailand?
So yeah, I actually since 2009 I've owned a camper van, and I've lived in it in London, and I've used it as my base in London, and I've transitioned full time to run coaching. I say full time, part time with my trail running. And last year I sold my camper van, and I decided to, because I work remotely, I thought, well, why not just go and live in Thailand before the attempt. It's cheaper. You can have a massage every day for like $6 for an hour or whatever. I enjoy it. I like the weather, and the mountains are there. So yeah, I didn't go just to train for the Appalachian Trail. I kind of went there for the lifestyle, actually, and because I enjoy all the qualities that Thailand has, and there's a trail running community there as well. So but it also worked well for a great training ground for the Appalachian Trail, because it was really similar with the terrain and the heat. So yeah, just went there for the lifestyle aspect.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And part of the equation also, which is with such a big effort, obviously, is the crew and the support and the structure. And it seems like it's a pretty tight group in terms of you all knowing one another for those that are going after the speed record. In that regards, it's not a huge pool of people, and everybody seems really supportive and really in contact. I mean, that's a lot, right? In terms of who can you reach out to that's going to be able to take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, kind of out of their lives to come crew you. And you can draw on a lot of knowledge, but then when it kind of comes to it, I mean, that's a big ask and a big task to try to put that infrastructure together.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And if you look at the past record holders, they've all had either really close friends or family members, whether it be a spouse, a father. Harvey Lewis had his father out. Meltzer had his father and his best friend Bells out. Jen Farr Davis had her husband out. Scott Jurek had his wife out. So my mum came out as well. I think that's a first, unless there's I had my mum out there, which was cool. Her train name is Gun Section. And then someone else called Iceman, who's a 72-year-old ex. He didn't through hike, he section hiked, so he's familiar with the trail, and he also does trail magic. So he's like a trail angel, lives in Pennsylvania, Lancaster, and he reached out to me because he heard of Liz Anjos at the time. Liz Anjos, now Liz Durstein, who went for the Northbound Supported with Warren Doyle, and he asked if I would be interested in any extra help. So it just kind of fell together, and him, Iceman, and Gun Section just worked really well together. They're both, my mother's not retired, but Iceman was retired. My mother's self-employed, so she was able to work around, having a big window for that attempt. And yeah, it's just kind of fell in my lap, really, in that sense. So yeah, you've got to have dedicated people on board. It's not just it's a big adventure. 2 months, a week before and a week after, that's like 2 months. It's a long time. Yeah.
I guess I'd say for most people, it's probably not a bad idea to not have your mom out there, in terms of, because you could probably go to some tough places emotionally, and that would be tough for you. But also, I imagine, just as I'm a parent, and I imagine for a mom, I mean, it's tough to see your kid, man, in a tough way, or grinding, or knowing that they got to keep going. But then when I think of your mom, and if her trail name's like the Gun Section, she's got to be a whole nother level or breed of mom there.
Yeah, you've got it. Like the person who was the least lenient person was gun section. I mean, she was. There was some tension sometimes. I'd come in and I mean, okay, so the whole climax, the biggest low point was when I said I quit. I'm finished, and I got back on trail and I carried on.
And that was like 3/4 the way through or so. Where did that
30
go?
days, I was
30 days.
17 miles ahead, 75% in there or whatever. And I thought it through for hours and hours in my head. And I told all the crew, I said, I'm done. But then I got back on trail. But then I got back in again. I said, yeah, I'm done. I really am done. I'm finished. And gun section said to me quite sternly, she said, yeah, well, you may be done, but we're not done, And I just said, oh, yeah, whatever. And I got in the car, lay down, took my socks and shoes off. And she just drove me to a motel, booked me in. And I kind of knew. It was really weird. It was actually this really cool feeling that when I was a child, I came out of the womb. I didn't know how to do anything. She carried me around and she took care of me. And I just had this deep feeling of nurture that at that point, I didn't know what to do. And I just knew that she would take care of me. So as probably hard as it is for a mother to see her son in that kind of situation, I knew there was no one out there like tougher than her. So that just worked well. I had the right crew. I remember Andrew Thompson said about Brew Davis with Jen. Not did Jen have the best crew, she had the right crew. And I think I also had in the situation where, I didn't just have the best crew, I had the right crew for me. So not as easy as you may think, just being my mother. She was tough. And the name works as well,
Yeah. So what's the root of the name? Is that able to be shared on the gun section? What's that from?
Oh no, it's easy. We're in Walmart, and I think after it's a big store, so I kept on losing her, and I phoned her up, and after I think the 4th time she said I'm in the gun section, I was like, well, so I gave that name to her. She doesn't like it. She thinks it's a bit hardcore, but everyone loves it. Yeah.
Well, she's in America, so you might as well, take on a related nickname there.
Yeah.
Yeah, might as well. So that's phenomenal. And so, I mean, I guess in that sense, there couldn't have been anybody better. And just the confidence, I guess, of knowing how much your mom has in you and know, I guess, what the effort meant to you. So to really, I mean, man, to not let you give up. And and to your point, or to the stat at that time, you were still a decent amount ahead, right? I mean, you hadn't fallen behind. And I was tracking you a bit through probably the first half, and then my life just got crazy. And I was like, yeah, he's still ahead.
Yeah.
And then it seemed to get stagnant or fall a bit. And then I missed it until you were done. So, I mean, that's crazy to even find yourself in that point of still being ahead or in contention and to still just want to be like, I'm done. Like, I'm done being out here.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking back, every time for the past 20 years, when I've run a event, marathon, ultra, whatever, I always do the same thing afterwards. I look at what went wrong and I look at how I can improve. And I feel it's by looking at what went wrong instead of what went right. That's where we get our growth, So it was natural to just go over the whole process after I'd finished, what went wrong? Why didn't I get the records? And it was down to strategy, it was down to, so if I'm open and honest about it, it's the fact that, so I had a roof tent on top of the Toyota Tacoma, which Iceman had. And instead of just getting, say, a mile or half a mile or 1.5 miles on top of the record each day, I was pushing myself past through the woods to the next gap to get to the roof tent, so I didn't have to sleep on trail, which meant that instead of putting a mile to a mile and a half on the record each day, some days I'd push 5 miles, or 4 miles or 3, I mean, that's just insane. Like, I don't want to do the 18, 36, 7 days, you can't keep that up. And so eventually what happened was, and this wasn't necessarily down to me because there were some times we could have stopped early. We did 2 60-mile days, 120 miles in 2 days through Pennsylvania, which was quite tough. And I was done after that. So I hung in there for another however long it was, 10 days or whatever. And then the miles went from 31 down to about 17 in the lead. And it's all about, when you're on something like this, it's how close can you take yourself to the edge without dropping off. And at that point, I just felt like I just fell right off. And it didn't matter if I was 17 miles ahead, you know, with 10 days to go, whatever. Nothing mattered. All that mattered is that, I mean, I just had nowhere to go, but just nothing else to do but quit, you know. And so it was down to strategy. And if I would so the way that would be rectified is to not shoot for the crew, not shoot for the roof tent, but just be familiar with having a overnight pack, making your 1 mile on the trail every day. That's 40 miles, you know, ahead of the record, almost a day, 1 mile a day, and sleep on trail. You know, Carl Meltzer said to me, you know, you need to sleep on trail a lot, you know, most of the time. And I didn't listen to that, didn't prepare for that. And that was my downfall. So strategy, which is good, because at least it's not my it's not my weak, I'm not weak mentally, or I'm not physically unprepared. I just didn't have the right strategy. So yeah, that's what happened.
The that mentally has to be an interesting spot too, with such a burly effort that it is. It's not, I mean, you have gone back and you have tried again, but once you're through the full thing and you have experienced that full load, you can go back and pick it apart, as I imagine you do with all of your athletes as well. But it's one thing to say, all right, I'll run that 50K, you know, better next year. I'll go out and do that, you know, run right. But think, man, do I, you know, man, that takes such a big chunk of your soul, I imagine, at all, to then want to be like, all right, I screwed up, like, I don't know, halfway in, I went a little too long those 2 days. I'm going to go back at it next year. And that's got to be a tough spot.
Yeah. I mean, when I was out there, and, you know, I've spoken to some of the other record holders, and they've said the same thing. The Appalachian Trail, I knew when I was out there, I knew that there and then I was like, this is enough pain that I want for a lifetime. Enough, call it mental, call it physical. I mean, I'm sure, you know, people go through life traumas, you know, they lose loved ones and stuff. I'm not, you know, I don't want to disrespect anyone in that way. So it's not that kind of pain, you know. It's a voluntary physical pain, I guess, that you put yourself through each day. And I thought, this is enough pain for a lifetime, you know. But I'm not going to lie, I'm already starting to think about how I can improve. Thinking about my window of opportunity. Who in the world is in a better position right now out of everybody on the planet to know how to go set a record on the AT? That's me. You know, no one is in a better position than me. Do I want to just wonder what would have happened? And I think that's what it boils down to. If I don't go back, I'll always wonder, could I have done it and learn by my mistakes? And if I do go back, I'll find out. So I'm not going to say anything really just yet about what's happening next year, but let's just say
you're also not closing that off.
Yeah, I'm not closing it off. And at the same time, yeah, that is enough pain for a lifetime. So who knows, you know?
Yeah, dude, that's big. All right. How about just some of the fun kind of details? How to go in, for instance, like what was, if it exists, because maybe you're responding in the moment and the days, and each day is maybe a little bit different. What was, for instance, like a nutrition strategy? What was the target? What was your go-to to just try to keep up and sustain that amount of caloric intake?
I think you eat a lot. I think you use a lot less calories than everyone makes out. I mean, okay. I know String Bean's out there, and his stats are like 10 to 12 to 13,000 calories a day. I don't know. Maybe it's because he's really tall or something. And you need that many, but I've got my watch, got my Garmin watch, has like a wrist heart rate monitor on it, and it calculates your, you know, it said I was burning about 6,000 calories a day. I mean, does that surprise you? Would you have thought it would be more, or
more than that? I guess for an FKT attempt, I would. For like somebody who wasn't, I guess if they're not, I guess it's a little bit different if they're totally weighted and they're like firing all cylinders just to accommodate like a 40-pound pack or whatever getting drained. But if you're going through fairly quickly, not. But I mean, you guys are going really quickly, and there's some long days. So, but I guess not. I mean, I guess if 3,000, 3,500 is maybe typical for some an athlete, and you're just like doubling it. No, I mean, I guess that would make sense.
Yeah. Because you know, I've heard people say numbers of 8,000 plus, but yeah, I found that 6,000. and gun section was taking care of the food. So morning was generally kind of oatmeal, kept it simple. I didn't want to eat too much because eating a lot of food in one go tires you out. And then throughout the day, it was just snacks all day. I'd have like a second breakfast, which may be a biscuit, bacon and egg biscuit from McDonald's, or gun section was good at making these things. Her surname's called Mullen, so she'd make it instead of a McMuffin, it was a McMullen, and it was a homemade McMuffin. It was good. And then snacks, I actually only ate 3 Snickers bars on trail. Actually, I had like steak sandwiches, cut in half and put in little plastic baggies, tuna sandwiches, fish sandwiches, and then like avocado. So lots of that savory stuff. And then I didn't really eat any trail mix. I ate like little bits of cake and stuff. And some jerky, but kind of beef jerky. Every time I saw the crew, I made sure to have a can of Sprite or soda, or what's it called, Dr. Pepper. So I think that was 120 calories. So it was quite. And then at the end of the day, I would eat like a camping meal by Real Termat, and that's 600-700 calories, and then an Ensure. Ensure is great. 16-20 grams of protein, 300 calories. So a combination of all foods, really. Yeah.
I think my first 100-mile attempt was Massanutten in I don't know, like 20 years ago or something like that. And I think a friend who was more experienced turned me on to Ensure at the same time. I was already aware of it, but in terms of using it in that context, like I know. And so I think I tried it for the first time during that race, and it was really successful in just emptying my stomach about 20 minutes later. And I don't think I've touched one since, but it was a beautiful first exposure to Ensure. So
yeah.
All right. So how about the concept of it just becoming in some ways, because it's such a huge effort, just disaster management to a certain extent. Anything that was just like disaster management you're going, whether it be foot care, or whether it be, I don't know, just something where it's just like just putting out these fires, and this was kind of an entertaining moment of trying to just respond and mitigate this something.
Yeah, I mean, there's flies up in Maine, those horse flies, black flies, mosquitoes, just, I mean, it's a joke. I had a head net on, and they were sitting all over the head net, and I had some short shorts on, and it's like I was playing some kind of tune, slapping my legs, slapping my legs. And then when they bite you, it itches for an hour and a half, so that sucks, the flies suck.
Yeah, and you can't go fast enough, and they're just mentally infuriating.
Yeah. And then when you get stung by a wasp, the adrenaline that comes through you, and the sting, and I got stung a couple of times by wasps, and but it's all part of it. I mean, it sucks, but I think that the thing which just is soul destroying, I think, is the roots in Maine. There's so many roots. There's no rhythm, and you just can't do much. There's not a lot you can do with those roots, and neither can the through hikers. Some tough conditions. Yeah.
All right. So how about the roots? And in terms of just relaying, I don't know whether it speaks to you, but how many times in life I've just so tired of kicking roots or little pointy rocks and just cursing out loud, like if the world just stop with like the rocks or the roots or whatever. How about foot care, or like, you have an Innovate partnership? What'd you have in your feet, and what'd you go through during the 40 days?
No, so I'm supported by Hoka.
Okay.
And darn tough socks. So that's what was on my feet. I had a little bit of, I used Exoskin a little bit as well. I was sharing my socks with Exoskin. Yeah, I mean, I got in at the end of the day. My feet are amazing, actually. Gotta say, I had, and they always have been. They were better than like Carol's, but hadn't done as much as Carol on trail. Yeah, so washed the feet in warm soapy water at the end of the day. And then if it was a humid day and my feet had been quite wet, I put some kind of baby powder on them. If they'd kind of dried out a bit, which wasn't really that much, I enjoyed putting some Epsom kind of coconut cream on them. I rolled them out to get the arches, the blood flow moving a little bit. And then also whenever my socks and shoes got wet and I saw the crew, I took my shoes and socks off, and I aired my feet until they became dry, which may take sometimes 6 minutes in the sun with someone fanning my feet. I'd put my socks and shoes back on and carry on, so my feet stayed dry. Yeah, I really maintained my feet well. Carl Meltzer said to me, you know, I know you've done a 10-day effort on Britain's longest national trail, but you've never done 40, so look after your feet. And I'd been there with Carol, and I saw him looking after his feet. So I felt that I managed that really well. I never had any problems. I'd say the only thing is, I was managing my calluses, but I waited 10 days until I started that, because I was so, I don't know, in the moment and enjoying myself. And after 10 days, I thought, well, I better get the calluses down a bit. By that point, I was like trying to always catch up with the calluses, where if I would have started day one, there was just 2 calluses, which got a few millimeters bigger than I would have wanted. And that's what eventually caused me some, if any, pain I got on my feet. It was from that.
Yeah. So that's good wisdom too, coming in from those who have done it, but also your experiences in the past. And did you go with the Speed Goat? What were you wearing?
Yeah, I mean, they're all here. I had Tecton X, Mafate 2, Mafate 3, and Speed Goats. But in the end, my go-to was the Speed Goat, just because they're the Speed Goat wide. And it wasn't the 5, it was just the 4. But I just needed that width in my foot, because when you're going downhill, as much as you use the locking system and try and bring your heel to the back of the shoe, you don't want to tie your laces too tight, you know, for 16, 17 hours a day. So there's that balance. And then if you don't have them too tight, your foot does slip to the front of the shoe, and your toes do eventually take on the shape of the shoe. And there's no shoe out there really which is shaped like feet, besides maybe Ultra, you know. The Speed Goat wide was what I like to put on the most. Yeah.
And how about some specific moments? I guess, I imagine you run through so many just very potent moments out on the trail. How about, I guess, it'd be nice to turn to the a beautiful moment third. Maybe there's beauty and pain as well, but how about just a low moment? I mean, out there and just, I guess what that low moment was in kind of pulling yourself out. And maybe it was your mom pulling yourself out at that moment, but how you dealt with that mentally, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'll share one of the highs. I mean, just one of them. There are many every single day. But I remember this one time I was listening to Eddie Vedder. He did the soundtrack to Into the Wild.
Yeah.
And you know when you play that soundtrack and you're in the woods, there's a feeling you get. I mean, just listening to that soundtrack's cool. Have you heard of it?
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I was on the trail and there was a hiker coming my way, and we just made eye contact, and it's like I touched. So I don't know. It's like I'm not someone who goes to church. You know, I did when I was in Pennsylvania with Iceman and stuff. He goes to church, so I went with him, but I don't regularly go, or I don't necessarily have a certain religion that I follow. But I just felt right then there was a presence of God, you know, like whether it was a spiritual connection or just the 2 souls of 2 men out on the trail. But there was just this beauty just in eye contact. And it just afterwards, I just started crying and listening to the music. And it's like, wow, that was strong, man, you know. So that was really nice. And then there was, again, moments with animals, you know, being out there with nature. Obviously, there was a deer. Sometimes the deers run off, and other times they just stand there and stare at you. And one time there was like a grouse, and I was making this like noise with my lips, like that you would to a cat, you know, whatever. And it just kept on looking at me and turning its head, and you know the eye contact was there, and just for about 4 minutes solid I was just making these noises, and then eventually it started walking towards me. I was like, this is just the most coolest thing. And then 4 minutes I lost on the record, but it was worth it. So just that connection, I guess, with people and nature was probably the highs. And the lows were just losing trust in myself, maybe my team, which was less than losing trust in myself. And just the lows were just getting the strategy wrong, getting the miles in, not getting the sleep in, and just not realizing that the sleep is just as important as your nutrition, It's as important as wearing shoes on the trail. The sleep is one of the essential elements needed to set a new record. And then when I wasn't paying attention to the sleep and it would go below what my comfortable limit was probably 5.5 hours or less, and it would then I'd slow down. That was just upsetting. There's nothing. Spending 15 days on trail with Carol, carrying his stuff and my stuff, moving just as fast as him, for a shorter distance, realizing, and asking myself, Kristian, is this fast? No, it's not fast. And then going out on trail and not being able to keep that pace myself, that was really frustrating. Yeah, that hurt.
So how about weaving in the profession of then coaching, right? I mean, you can kind of look back and pick a lot of these things apart, just as you could have kind of prepped yourself in advance. I mean, you somewhat were able to restructure in certain ways, at least geographically, your life around it. So after you could speak to one of your athletes of, maybe this would be the most ideal buildup. So let's maybe turn to the coaching piece a bit, not even just like the AT, but it was interesting just seeing what you had on your website where you had time spent in Ethiopia and just mentioned drawing on the experiences there in coloring both your coaching and your running. Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration for coaching and I guess some of your experiences and continued on to now, how your AT experience now kind of shapes some of your coaching, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, it's early days. The past experiences with my AT are influencing my athletes, but the current, I'm only back 2 days in London, and I'm yet to utilize that with my athletes. I will be doing, because the experience I learned on trail is something unique to a 2,000-mile run. But going back to Ethiopia, before I went to Ethiopia, until then, I used to just run it was mostly because I enjoyed it, and there was I'm not really a competitive person, and I just do it because I enjoy it. And then when I went to Ethiopia, I went to do it because I wanted to write a book about Ethiopian runners and their training methods. So I lived with the Ethiopians, not by myself, shared a small room with Ethiopian runners. One of them was a 2:11 marathon runner, Sege. And the other, the slow guy in the room was 2:19 or 2:18. I mean, it's the abilities are crazy over there. So, I was the slowest by a big margin. And when I came back to England, and when I raced in Thailand and stuff, I just started winning trail races, and that's about the same time I started coaching. So I started sharing, what I'd learned, which helped me start improving my success. Whether you call it, I was enjoying myself still, but I was coming ahead of other runners, and then sharing that with my athletes as well. Things because not all my athletes want to win. They don't want to all be podium. A lot, I've got different ranges of ability. Like some of them are just middle of the pack. Some of them just want to finish the event. But still, there's lessons to be learned from what I experienced, and I guess use those with my athletes to help them, with their performance. And it's not, like I say, always about getting on the podium. And then I think the thing about being a coach and an athlete at the same time enables me to not just say, I want you to do this because I read it in this book. It's like, okay, listen, I live this. This is what I do. This is what I've experienced. This is where I've personally failed. Now, this is how I can help you because I know, and I know, and then what I guess I do with my clients is I enjoy it. I like the interaction, and I just see it as almost like a relationship which we both work towards a certain goal using. And I don't just say, hey, listen, this is what I've learned. This is what I want you to do. I really encourage people to be the best they can be in the way that they can be the best, and that may not be, again, like winning a race, but it's just achieving their level of potential. And that's what's important for me, is to help people achieve what their potential is, not what I think, that's important as well, but what their potential is. And so I don't know, I like it. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool. It's a good job. Yeah.
And is there anything, whether it's coming out of Ethiopia or otherwise? I mean, there's coaches that have, I mean, I guess it's different if you're talking about like a high school coach or a college coach. When you get into the coaching more adult athletes across various distances and across various, I guess, goal sets in terms of competition. I was about to say, is there anything that you found in your own, whether coming from Ethiopia or after, that was kind of like a fun or a favorite workout that you've done or repeated for yourself that then you'd kind of do versions of with athletes, or not really because everybody's just too whatever?
No, yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, you read Runner's World and it's a great magazine. We all know, what you do is you do a long run and you do a speed session or maybe 2 speed sessions. Yeah. Ethiopians will do 4 speed sessions a week. 4, and they won't. So, and then in a training program in Runner's World, you'll be told, and I'm not like, any training program doesn't need to be Runner's World. You'll be told to build up to a long run of about 22 miles, Ethiopian marathon runners are running basically from 20 miles to, or from like 40K to 50K, every week, close to marathon pace. So they're doing, their long run of their block, they're doing that every week, and then, when you go out into the track and you do 12 times 400, they're doing like 40 times 400. Instead of doing 10 hill repeats, they're doing 40 hill repeats. Instead of like 15 times 1 minute, they're doing 50 times 1 minute on and 1 minute off. They're just timesing everything by, and they're running twice a day. They're not just running in the morning, they're running in the evening as well. They're just doing so much more than because I never knew about that until I went there.
And do you think that would cross over for most individuals? Like, are these, in most cases, individuals that were still juggling kind of the work-life balance? I mean, if there is such a thing at that level, and maybe there isn't as much of a balance at that level, but were these individuals that were running in the morning still going to work a full day and then kind of running afterward, or these were like just full-time runners?
These are, in Ethiopia, these are full-time, paid by the government runners. After that morning run, after our morning run, we would just go and have breakfast and then sleep, and then start the day and prepare some lunch, go and have a walk, have some tea or whatever. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily employ these tactics with my run coaching athletes, but I just, it's the principles and the relationship I build with my clients. But yeah, I don't necessarily say, go and do 40 times 400, because that's going to kill a lot of people. It's tough. But I was just saying my insight into the difference in the training in East African competitors.
Yeah.
I mean, I even heard in Kenya, some of the runners are doing 3 runs a day. The Ethiopians told me they're running 3 times a day. I mean, that's unheard of. I know. So I think there was an ultra runner who used to do 4 runs a day, I think, but that was back a while ago. I forget her name. Maybe it was Pam Reed, I think, did that. She used to do 4 runs a day.
Yeah, I think you used to hear more of that in terms of individuals maybe coming out of the 70s, maybe more apt to do some high volume. And then, I don't know, maybe it's just this cerebral academic, maybe through some experiences, like that's just bad for you. It's like bad for health, or like that's not, the way it's done or whatever. But then to your point, right, you see the model or kind of those thoughts being usurped a little bit in different parts of the world through some pretty dominant cultures.
Plus that's their full-time job. I mean, in America and Europe, we work from 9 till 5. And I mean, we sit down all day if you've got a sitting job. I mean, that's bad for you.
But to your point, though, even probably some of the American elites, I don't know about in other parts of Europe, but at least the American elites, they're probably not doing 50K runs every weekend, or they're still not doing, they might be doing some really hard workouts, and they may be doing 120-mile weeks or whatever. But that's still not the same level as you're seeing, at least in Ethiopia, or maybe some parts of other African countries, or maybe even Japan, who will do some pretty high volume and some pretty high intensity stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing just worth noting is that basically all but the 1 run each week. So let's say there are a lot of the Ethiopians are religious, Christian Orthodox. So let's say they do 6 times 2, 12 runs a week. There's only, out of those 12 runs, only 1 of them is on concrete. The other 11 are on, it's not called trail because it's just a big open plain. So there's not like a trail like in, where we have followed the single trail. It's just open plains, and they're on the open plain. So it's all dirt running that they're running on. 11 out of 12 runs is on dirt.
which in some regards, right, in terms of impact, pretty amazing, physiologically speaking.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
not necessarily in London, but it was, I did an internship in Scotland for a bit, and it was cool to get up into some of the fells and just to have access to such a broad landscape in terms of what would be defined as just like public space here. But to your point, you're right. You're not just following a single track. I mean, you can really run wherever you want up in those pastures or hills or whatever. And
Yeah.
truly just amazing.
Yeah. 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 For sure. Yeah.
So what, so I imagine at this point, you're still just kind of decompressing, just decompressing, resetting or whatever. Anything left for this year that's kind of on the horizon, or just kind of now you're just seeing what comes?
Yeah. Well, like I fractured my finger when I was,
Well done.
where was I? Just coming out of New Hampshire into Gorham, and I fell and fell on my wrist on my left hand. So yeah, I'm just waiting for that. That's going to take 6 weeks. They said no, we only went there a few days ago. I actually waited 2 weeks after I'd fractured it because it was crazy. I then had, not long after the fracture, I had Mahusik notch, where it's the most point on the AT you're going to use your hands. It's crazy.
Beast.
So yeah, I'm going to wait for my yeah. And then I got a touring cycle bike. I want to cycle across France down through Spain to go and see my girlfriend in Denia, which is on the east coast of Spain. Going to go and hang out with her for a bit. I want to spend a lot of time in the ocean. You know, I've been on the land for a long time, and I want to appreciate water now, you know, for a while, and just kind of get the balance back with, you know, being in the water. And then in terms of like I said, not saying that I am going to go back, but if I do go back next year, that's going to take a heck of a lot of logistics, because if I do go back, there's some pretty big names interested in coming to support me. So that's going to take a lot of attention. And yeah, so no races, just go back to running when I'm ready, enjoy swimming, enjoy cycling, and just appreciate, I think, truly try to appreciate what I've done, you know, for sure.
So let's get a little bit where people can find you, whether it be just to get more of your info or whether they want to reach out for coaching, and then maybe end with, end with something else maybe related to the AT. But how about just, and I know people can always just like Google it or whatever, but in terms of just plugging it, where can people look you up for more info or coaching info or whatever it might be?
Yeah, on my main source of social media, Instagram, and it's Ultra Running Coach, just Ultra Running Coach, or just search Kristian Morgan, Kristian spelled with a K. And then if you go there, you can send me a message, or if you just go to kristianultra.com, which is my website, Kristian with a K, kristianultra.com, you'll find my coaching prices, a little bit of information about me, all my social media links, and my email addresses on there as well. So yeah, just, I mean, or just go into Google and just type Kristian Morgan.
Kristian Morgan, it'll come up.
Yeah.
And I guess that's even,
contact me.
Yeah. I guess that's where we're at, right? I mean, I guess I think when I was in college, whatever. It's funny now that we'll still plug things, but really everybody just Googles you anyway, and it just, you know, they're going to find a direct shot. But
yeah.
All right, so maybe let's close out this. It's kind of fun, I think, in some ways, that many of us are so lucky to be doing what we're doing in terms of having the physical capacities or the resources, and you've been very successful and intentional about following the path that you have. But to, I guess, the moments where we just stop to appreciate that. So was there a specific time that you can remember, or it could be a couple, if there's a couple that you get immediate flashbacks of times on the AT journey where you just stopped and were like, wow, like this is just amazing, whether it be the geography or the view shed or the level of support or emotion, where it just seemed where you could stop and really appreciate the moment?
I mean, every day there was those moments, you know, as much as there was the lows, there was the highs, you know, there was always some animal or some plant or some sunrise or set, the sky turning a certain color, a person. I mean, I liked, I really got a lot of support from the thru hikers. My trail name is Captain, whatever, Captain Morgan. So I'd have like thru hikers. I'd go past like a shelter and it would be dark, and I'd see someone put their head out the sleep bag and say, "Is that Captain Morgan?" I mean, those things just made me smile, and I'm just really. I really appreciate the support I got from the thru hikers and the love I got from those guys. Because I mean, I did a big section hike last year on the AT. After I failed, my attempt, I just went and did 450 miles, on the AT with a backpack and the thru hikers, and I got a lot of love from those guys. So I feel pleased I got to see it from both sides. But as a runner this year, and to have the support not from my crew only, but also the thru hikers, I mean, that was one of the highlights, man. The people were the highlight, for sure, definitely.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it was an incredible effort. It was awesome to see you charging out for the record, and even more awesome to see you continue on, even when you knew the record was kind of had slipped out of your grip there. And even more amazing that that your head and spirit are still there. It's like, hey, I don't know what comes ahead, but maybe there's going to be a next round, and it'll be fun to see. I don't know, maybe see that take shape, and maybe try to come out and join you for a leg.
Yeah. You're frozen there a sec.
All right, we're
back.
Still,
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're back. Yeah. So, thanks, Ian. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoy talking about my experience, and thanks for taking the time. It's been an honor. Yeah.
Thanks for staying up and still being up at 1 a.m. over in there in London. So
I forgot. I got lost in the moment. All right, cool.
All right, dude. Sleep well, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See you later.
All right. See ya. All right. So we are going to turn our attention to weaving in Lee and Michelle. And Shannon, thanks for being on the back end there. We'll weave you in here shortly as well. Good to see you both again.
Hi, Ian.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So escarpment for both of you. I mean, there's so many people that could reach out to with escarpment, but for both of you, I know how close escarpment is for both of you. So it's not just about both of you just got the wins. It was, I mean, Lee, you keep going back and have gotten a number of wins there. So you clearly have a personal affection for the course. And then Michelle, for you as well, to go back and your personal relationship with Dick, and to have the FKT on the Devil's Path. I know it's very personal for you as well. And also knowing that you've both been in some higher profile races this year with some pretty intense efforts under your belt, to still kind of be charging and running well at escarpment is pretty awesome. It says a lot about, I think, your commitment, and as well as just fitness. So I'm assuming that most people who will be finding us in this episode already know of escarpment, know some of the details. Hopefully that's the case, given it's one of the most classic races in the country, let alone the Northeast. But in case people are listening in and aren't familiar with escarpment, Michelle, break down, tell us what escarpment's all about.
All right. Escarpment, 30K trail race down in the Catskills that follows the Escarpment Trail. So the Escarpment Trail itself is actually about 23 miles long. So this does 18.6 of that. The race starts at Elm Ridge, goes up Windham High Peak, over Blackhead, which is about the halfway point. So Windham, Blackhead, and then Stopple Point are the 3,500 peaks that you go over during the race. From Stopple Point, you've got 4 miles of basically downhill rocky terrain to North Lake, where you pop out into a picnic area and the race is over.
And for both of you, because you're both so fast, so tough, so competitive, escarpment is one of those where it's at some point you have to exceed what you feel is prudent, I guess, on that course. There's just the level of risk can be pretty high in terms of hucking yourself off boulders into some blind footing, like landings and kicking rocks, whether it be a 90-degree right turn where there's a cliff right there at the end, any number of points where, man, it's like, how hard do you go? So for both of you, and you can each comment, and I guess it's kind of it gets it more of like a vague concept, which may make it tough to pin down in a concise answer. But I guess, how do you find that limit at Escarpment when you're charging so hard, yet there's so much risk on that course? Lee, take it.
Yeah, it's definitely a risky course. But I would say there's a difference the first time you run it. Like, the first time you run it is something special because you don't know what's coming up on those turns. So a lot of times there'll be a ledge and you're not sure how far that ledge is. Some of them are about 10, 15 feet. And if you just plowed over them, you would, that would be a bad day. And then, so the subsequent times I've run it, I've actually been able to anticipate when those ledges would come up. But still, I've only run the course 3 times. And I've only ever been on the starting section, just the uphill portion once, and the end section once. So really a handful of times. You're still there's still turns that I miss, and rocks that I miss, and falls that I take because of that. So yeah, it's a lot of risk. And every time I run it, I finish the race and immediately I think, why did I just do that? That's the dumbest thing you can do. And more often than not, each year is harder for me to tell myself to go and run it. So,
well, good for you. I think that speaks to how much tougher you are than me. But in some ways,
maybe it's not. Maybe I'm not as smart. Maybe that's.
I was going to say that, but I know I'm not that smart. So I don't know
if it's toughness. I would say. I think it's
right.
Yeah. It's
the one time I ran it, I was like, yeah, dude, that was awesome. That was beautiful. But I don't know. I feel like if I want to go harder out there, which I could, there's a big chance that I'm going to hurt myself. And do I want to do that? I don't know. So good for you on keep going back and putting yourself in that situation. And Michelle?
Yeah, I think to Lee's point, there's definitely an element of familiarity that comes into play. Your first time on that course, it's just the shock to the system. But I think that's the same way for a lot of trails and courses on the East Coast. The first time you do it, you're just in awe and shock, and you think about all the dangerous sections. And then the next time you sort of start to anticipate where some of the riskier spots are. I think with escarpment, at least for me, I feel that there are just a few sections where you really run that risk of there's going to be a really steep drop off. So you can take the 10 seconds to slow down and make sure you don't fall on your face, and then make it up on the flatter, smoother sections of the course. Because this course actually has a lot of running. Yeah. Especially for the Catskills. So,
which is, I guess, part of the beautiful thing too. Everybody maybe will talk about some of the climbs, and I almost feel like the climbs flow. I mean, you've got enough places to put your foot, or you got enough roots to kind of grab on, and you can kind of get in that rhythm. And unlike some other very technical East Coast races where you just can't find a rhythm, you can't find a flow, you're kicking crap left and right. Aside from maybe the section up around the airplane or whatever and over where I started kicking a few rocks late in the race, I felt like it flows. And even some of the rock hopping sections, I left feeling wow, there's a lot of risk, but it still flowed. So as long as you kind of stick the landing with your footing or whatever, you can run hard. And then it's kind of this graceful bounding or whatever feeling, particularly late in the race, which is such a great thing when it's flowing. And you had pretty ideal conditions this year, right? Because that makes a difference on this course as well. I mean, you can get up and some of it may be slimy or wet or the ground shifting or whatever, but it was pretty ideal this year.
Yeah, I would say for the years I've run it, that was the driest, best conditions I've ever seen. And my brother actually lives in that area, and he said it was a very dry year so far up there. So I think there was 1 or 2 patches of mud the entire trail that I saw. So,
and I didn't get a chance to dig in on stalking your finish times this week, knowing that you've both run pretty fast out there historically too, and knowing it was pretty ideal conditions. Did you guys run PRs, course records set, or not this year?
You can go first, Sean.
So I did not run the course record. The course record for women is actually 3:07, which is so stout. The woman who ran that, Casey Bradley Byrne, she has the 3 fastest times on the course: 3:07, 3:12, 3:15, something like that. But I did run a 12-minute course PR for myself. I finally broke 3:30,
That's
and I did run the fastest women's time in 20 years, so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And you've also, I mean, I guess that speaks to also, you've been really honing back in the training, right? In this path, like 4 or 6 weeks, or you're really kind of really focusing in on it?
Yeah, I think I probably focused on it a little bit less than I have in past years. I've definitely showed up at the start line of that race, actually feeling more confident and probably in better escarpment shape than I felt this past weekend. But I think I just hit a point through my training since Breakneck where I was actually ready physically and mentally for a hard effort. And I've had a bit of a hard time finding that over the past couple of months. So it's nice when the timing works out well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice work. And that is, when you get some of those earlier generation times that still stand, like decades later or whatever, man, it's pretty incredible. I mean, some of those individuals, man, it's just nuts to think about just how stout some early times are that still stand, and given the times that they were in or whatever. I mean, those individuals were a whole nother level or just fully juicing at that point.
Yeah. Pretty incredible. The second fastest woman is Nikki Kimball. So she ran 3:24 the year that she won. And then she did that 2 years before she won Western States. So I'm holding on to hope that it's a good trajectory.
For sure.
But Lee also ran really fast, so he should tell you about that.
Well, yeah, for me, it was a strange year. I did run well finally at Loon Mountain. It took a little while for me to get into shape this year. I ran, not necessarily a mistake doing this, but just what I had for time and everything. Was I ran on the treadmill for most of the winter. So by the time I was running Breakneck, I'd run only probably a handful of runs outdoors actually when I ran Breakneck. And it just it doesn't work when you're trying to do those eccentric landings downhill. Your legs just gas out. So each run I did, I felt a little better with the downhill running up until Loon Mountain. And then I actually just took the last month kind of just I didn't really even train. I did a couple runs, and we went out to Colorado and just did hiking out there and enjoyed just July a little bit more than I usually do life-wise. So going into the race, I didn't know how fast I would run. And I actually, for some reason, I just totally forgot about my splits for most of the race. I felt really good on the downhills this year. I felt really like I've learned a lot the past couple of years running downhill running, and my legs just were ready for it. And the flats, I felt like I was holding my own. The uphills, I definitely was not running as fast as I did the year before, but I ended up actually running pretty close to my time all the way to Stopple Point. And actually I saw Steve there, and he was asking oh, are you close to your record pace? And I kind of was like, oh no, I think I'm 2 minutes off. I'm not gonna do it this year. And at that time, right in the race, my legs were kind of dead, and that's where I fell. I fell probably about 2 minutes after that, and it just really threw me off. But all in all, even not running that last 3 miles well, I still was 2:46, was only a couple minutes off my record. So I really can't complain with how it turned out. And the conditions probably helped out a little bit, although 2018 was still pretty fast conditions day. So I was astounded that I ran that fast given kind of how I went into it, I guess. So I was happy with it. And it does shows me that if it's very, very possible for someone to run in the low 2:30s on that course. If someone can close the way Alistair, I forgot his name, I think it's Gardner. He was from Canada or Quebec a couple years ago. Yeah. If someone ran as fast as he did the last 3 miles and had my time up until Stopple Point, it could easily be well into the 2:30s for the record. And I haven't historically yet run that last 3 miles a really fast time. So hopefully someone can do it in the next couple of years. I definitely think it's possible now. So it's not out of the question.
So it's a couple things there. And that was, I guess I could see you were in our email communication when I mentioned, reached out to you to let you know Breakneck would be the qualifying, trying to get you in the full field or whatever. I mean, you were open in terms of, your fitness and like the dad scheduler or whatever wasn't ideal. But I guess you could also see that play out in your Breakneck performance. I think when you came in and made the decision to pull the plug at roughly half or 18, whatever that was, miles in, I guess that was clear because I was looking at you and I was like, dude, like, what are you talking about? Like, you look fine. Like in the face, you looked okay. But I think that speaks to just how, you're an incredible all around athlete, but the engine clearly was like, okay. In there. But I guess that would make sense if your legs just aren't ready for that, then you can't even tap into like that depletion zone. You just can't find those gears.
Exactly. It's a huge balance between the uphill running. You can have the engine to run uphill, which at the time at Breakneck, I probably could have ran pretty well, just like a straight vertical K type race. But you need the downhill running, and that's just time on feet. And that's, I can't be out in the mountains for 6 hours anymore, a day. Like I can't be doing weekend trips with the Adirondacks as much anymore. If I do that, it's more of to see family. It's not to do a run, which is okay. But yeah, there's importance with specificity in training, and just you need to have that for the downhill technical running. You can't just, you can do it, but it's not going to be pretty.
And were you content with how this year went just because, hey, that's where you're at in life? Or was it a bummer to maybe come up? I don't know. I guess it is where it is, but in a different year, maybe you would have been had your neck in it for the Breakneck finish. You would have had your neck in it a little bit higher up in the Whiteface pack or whatever. Was that hard, or is just like, I don't know?
No, I'm actually super content with it. I kind of approach things as I like to compete, and that's just part of it. Though I like training. I love learning about training. I love that aspect of the sport, and I also like, I'm enjoying being a father. Like that's just so much fun too as well. So, and at any point that I've ever run, like I'm just someone who just like would enjoy going out for a run if it was a run. I like competing too. I like that side of running too as well. So it's not a disappointment at all. And I think it's a good question because it's a nice way to approach running in general, because I think people get caught up a lot on their performance and what they're doing each year. And really running for me always just gives you the appropriate challenge. So whether you're 70 or when I started out running at 4 years old, you still have that appropriate challenge. Like it's always hard if you want it to be. And at the same time, you can just make it easy if you want to as well, hopefully is the goal. So my hope is to do this for lifelong and not just 10 years or something like that.
Yep. And then Michelle, you were really focused going into Breakneck. You had it panned out with the performance that you had there. And then you just needed some time to just kind of decompress for a bit, right? And maybe it was like I don't know if you had some others in there, but it seemed like maybe the Great Adirondack Trail run was maybe just like so-so, or you weren't as competitive out there. And you just mentioned it too, in terms of Escarpment, you kind of felt like you were ready to race again. So that kind of just needed that time and kind of the passion's back.
Yeah, it wasn't even necessarily that I lost the passion for it. I came off of Breakneck, and of course I was just elated. I had the perfect day, and can't be more excited about getting to go to Thailand. But I came off of that feeling really content, and I wanted to recover. I knew that was super important to being ready to get back into more serious training later on in the year. But one thing that I did want to do is I thought I needed to put myself on start lines more, because I don't tend to race a lot. I really love the process of training. So I want to spend a ton of time training and then show up and give a hard effort. But I thought going into Thailand, it would be beneficial mentally to be on a start line, be in a competitive field. And so that's why I threw myself into the Great Adirondack Run and into Whiteface. But I had fun. Well, I had fun doing the Great Adirondack Run. I don't know if I had too much fun doing Whiteface. Sorry.
That's fair. That's fine.
It was definitely not a course for me. But I realized in both of those events on the start line and throughout the entire race that mentally I just wasn't ready to be in a position to dig deep. And I didn't even really know getting on the Escarpment start line. I felt really I felt fit. I felt good, but it was kind of an unknown. Am I going to be mentally ready out there to dig deep when it gets tough? And I can't say that it ever got really tough. I felt good like pretty much the whole day. So yeah, I think I just needed time to really, enjoy running, not be super focused on one event. And now I feel really ready to get focused for Thailand in November.
Mm-hmm. That was good. I just checked my initial response when you said, I don't think it ever really got tough. I was like, what are you sandbagging out there for? Like, what do you mean it didn't get tough? No wonder you didn't deserve that 30-year-old record, whatever. And I was like, man, no, I mean, to Lee's point, right? We got to change our mindset and just where we find our flow out there and enjoy it. And it's not all about, needing to always hurt out there. That's not why we're out there, I guess.
So
I mean, for some people it could be fine.
Yeah, I wanted it to get tough towards the end. I was ready to dig deep those last 4 miles, but I think myself and a lot of other people I talked to after the event, I cramped like I've never cramped before in those. It was really the last 2 miles. My legs just at one point jumping off some of those rocks seized up on me, and I actually had to stop and collect myself. And I had this moment where I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be walking to the finish line and it's going to take me 4.5 hours. So sometimes your body has other opinions about what's going to happen.
I ran into the same problem too. I got over the climb up the Stopple Point is kind of a sneaky climb. I actually feel like that's harder than the one up Blackhead Mountain for me. And by the time I got up there, my hamstrings were spasming, like my quads were spasming, like the point where you can't even you're on wobble legs. So it's not, you're trying to jump over ledges and your legs aren't really following you. So it's a tough thing to get to the finish line.
Yeah, which is awesome for that course. You kind of need your legs to be doing that right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good job to both of you. So, Michelle, I know what you've got focused on tail end of the season here. And so you've got 3 months? Is that what's...
I have 3 months as of this past weekend.
Well, time's a ticket. I guess you better get to sleep about right now because, there's some training to do.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning.
There is. Yep. Yeah. I'll run again tomorrow. I haven't run the past 2 days. So.
And then any other races? What else are you jumping into any other between now and then?
I'm not sure if I will. Maybe one. I'm actually going to be going out to Flagstaff for 5 weeks ahead of the race to train. And the week that I'm out there is one of the Golden Trail Series races is happening. It's the week that I first get there. So I might jump into that, but I'm not sure if I want to do that to myself in my first week at altitude. So we'll see. But if I don't run a race between now and Thailand, that's fine by me.
Yep. And then Lee, I mean, you've done a lot already this year. What else? You got anything else on deck that's slated?
I have nothing planned for the rest of the year, which is awesome. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I kind of am ready just to take a little bit of a break. But I will be training more for maybe like cross country races potentially. Usually our club team in this area, we usually do the series of cross country races in the area. So I might be doing a couple of those. So that'll be fun. But nothing else.
Right on. Well, great job to both of you on another awesome run of Escarpment. So
thank you.
And totally. And thanks for carving a bit out of your evenings tonight. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian.
All right. Talk to you both later.
Yep. Bye.
See ya. All right. Shannon. Nice to I don't know whether we actually met at Whiteface or
very briefly.
Very briefly. Okay.
Yes.
So nice to re-meet you and see you again here. And thanks for patience there on the back end and taking some of your time here this evening. So we are going to then turn for this last segment here to Wakely Dam, another classic event here, very much Beast Coast. For those not already familiar, it's a 55K point-to-point that goes through the Adirondack wilderness using a pretty remote section of the Northville Placid Trail. Pretty awesome that once you're in, I mean, you're in, right? I mean, you got to get yourself to the finish because there's not really outs or road crossings or whatever. Classic event, not And just like with everything that Adirondacks, right, it's kind of limited on field size and can only let in a certain amount.
Yeah, I think registration filled up in like 5 minutes this year. It was very fast. There was, I think, 65 runners, so pretty small.
Yeah, so that's awesome getting in there. And so for you, this is relatively, and so you're coming at us. Are you in Saranac? Where are you based?
Yep, I'm in Saranac Lake, right in the central Adirondacks.
Right on. And so in terms of just stalking really quickly your ultra sign up history, relatively new on the at least formal trail and ultra scene, at least of races where they're keeping tabs on results. Started with a Moreau half, jumped into Black Canyon 100K. So you went out kind of big in a higher profile event this past February. Whiteface in July. So just kind of running the gamut of going long and higher profile to shorter, kind of higher profile. And then building into the Kilkenny Ridge 50 this coming September. But in this case, in terms of coming hard out of the gates, your trajectory is pretty solid. With taking the women's, not just win, but with a new course record of 5:51. Which is awesome, given the race has been around a bit. So I guess what's your background ahead of 2021? And are you just finding your way into running, or that's just more the trail ultra space?
No, I am very new to running. So I just started trail running last spring, so spring of 21. Prior to that, I had done mainly hiking, all hiking in the Adirondacks. So spent a good part of the last 7 years since I've lived up here hiking in the high peaks. So that kind of gave me my foundation, but I was ready to pick up the pace a little bit. So got into trail running last spring and mainly doing local races. So things not even on ultra sign up until this year. So mainly just signing up for races that are in the Adirondacks. Black Canyon was kind of a spur of the moment decision. And then I did not train for it. So it was an experience for sure. So won't be doing any more big races like that for a while. Mainly going to stick local.
Well, no doubt. And dude, if it sounds like you got to get in training time with that dog sounds like it's some pretty high energy. Hopefully it's not wanting to eat your leg right now, but it clearly wants to go out for an easy 10 miler right now.
Yeah, sorry about that. They were being so good the whole podcast until, of course, I have to talk. Now two of my dogs are wrestling behind me right now. So yes, I do have high energy dogs that require a lot of exercise. So they are my constant trail running buddies. So it's lots of fun. Keeps me accountable.
And so what was the I guess the cue or the inspiration for transition going from the hiking to entering some trail running races?
Yeah, I kind of felt like I had, done most of what I could do in the high peaks. I've hiked the 46ers multiple times now, and I did a single season winter season in 21. So I kind of felt like I wanted to take on some longer days, and the best way to link more mountains and more trails together is to pick up the pace a little bit. So by running the flats and the downhills, you can, go out for bigger days. And that's what I was looking to get into. So just started running and fell in love with trail running. So
cool. And are you from Adirondack area, or where'd you grow up?
Actually grew up outside of Chicago in the Midwest, and then realized it was much too flat. And I love the mountains and the water. So moved to the Adirondacks almost 8 years ago. And
nice.
This is my home now. Yeah.
And way to fully immerse yourself in the Adirondacks. I mean, you kind of went after it. What are you working for an outdoor organization or the Wild Center? I didn't get a chance to stalk you well enough.
So the Wild Center is a natural history museum located in Tupper Lake, New York, so right in the Tri-Lakes region. So I'm on the education staff there, so I get to work, in this beautiful place and then play on my days off. So
and
living the life right now.
That is nice work. My kids love the Wild Center going up there, and it's kind of one of the stopovers, and it's a wonderful experiential museum.
It's a great place.
Sweet. So so you kind of went from Chicago to you are Adirondack at this point, including that awesome stone chimney or fireplace behind you. You're just screaming Adirondacks at this point. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So Jumping into the trail space, getting a feel for various things. I think that is pretty entertaining that you did just kind of jump into Black Canyon. Why Black Canyon jump out, and what was the last minute inspiration there? Just because it seems to be a relative outlier, but it's an event going big in the off season.
Yeah. So honestly, it all came down to the location. I had a place to stay just outside of Phoenix. So I wanted to do a race in the winter, go on vacation, good excuse to get somewhere warm in February. So I ended up just kind of Googling races and finding that one, not realizing at all like how competitive or high profile it was, being new to the trail running scene. So I signed up for it, and then once I signed up for it, I just kind of was stuck going. So it was, obviously gorgeous to be in Arizona in February, escape the Adirondack winter for a week. And I enjoyed the scenery. Wasn't able to run as much of that race as I had planned, unfortunately, just due to injury and not training this winter, but still had a good time. So maybe one day when I'm more prepared, I'll go back.
Yeah. I imagine you'll be hopefully back in that mix, something similar here pretty soon. All right. So how about the thoughts going into Wakely Dam? I mean, you're being up there and the amount of time that you've put in to the Adirondacks and high peaks and trails must be pretty familiar territory for you to jump into. Did you imagine you felt pretty prepared and kind of knew what you were getting into with that one?
I did, yeah. So I had through hiked the Northville Placid Trail in 2019. So I had gone start to finish from Northville to Lake Placid. So I knew that section well. And I remember really enjoying that section of the trail. It was one of my favorite days on trail. So when I heard about Wakely Dam, I'm like, this is right up my alley. It's on a trail that I know and that I love and enjoy. And, it's a relatively close race to where I live. So that's always a benefit as well. And yeah, I felt very, very prepared for the trail and the experience. So,
yep. And in terms of the competition angle, do you feel like you're a pretty competitive person? Did that kind of play in on going out for the win, so to speak? Or is that just like, well, I don't know, I was out there just kind of running and I just happened to be in first?
Yeah, I am a competitive person, but in races, I don't ever have any expectations. I run for the joy of running, and some days are good days, some days are bad days. So I had a relatively good day on Saturday, and really just enjoyed myself and enjoyed the race.
Yep. And for that one, I guess it's still Beast Coast, it's still the Adirondacks in terms of technicality, but based on what you're surrounded by, fairly mild in terms of metrics, right? It's like 3,500 feet of gain over the 55K. Is that kind of what the metrics are?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So relatively, flatter terrain for Adirondacks. You're not going up any mountains or anything on this course. It actually starts on a gravel road, so the big couple first miles you can do fairly fast until you get on trail. And then maybe around mile 9 or so, it starts to get more technical, more rocks, more roots, more water crossings, a lot of water crossings, a little bit more mud. So the middle section of the race is definitely the most challenging foot-wise. And then towards the end, it mellowed out again. Yep.
And so for those that are used to more technicality, more climbing, are you out there with just the experience of like, yo, this is a lot of running out here. Like I need a mountain to climb. I need an excuse to walk or hike. Most of it just running, and it's like you're pretty much running for 55K.
Yeah. So, there's a couple really tiny climbs, nothing substantial at all, but the beauty of this trail is all the water you run past. So you kind of go through the Cedar Lakes area, and then you go through Spruce Lakes 10 mile later. So it's just really kind of quintessential Adirondack terrain. So not really views of the mountains, but, views of lakes and just remoteness that makes it special, I think.
And we're just outside of maybe some of the black fly season. So running past all that water, are you just getting eaten alive? Or thankfully we're just over that high season, right? Am I thinking about that right?
So yeah, black flies are pretty much gone in the park. The deer flies are vicious right now, except Saturday was the perfect day. They actually gave every participant a piece of deer fly tape to put on your hat because the deer fly they're bad right now in the park. But Saturday there was a breeze the whole time. So I don't think I heard a single fly the whole race. It was perfect.
Nice. Awesome. And so you're just getting into it. So you're building into Kilkenny. Hopefully that's going to be up your alley as well with some technical terrain. Kind of the thicket of the Adirondacks should be familiar territory for you in terms of what that'll be like up there. Have you previewed the course at all, or?
I have been on a small section of that course. I did trail work in New Hampshire before moving to the Adirondacks way back when, and actually helped rebuild a bridge on that trail. Nice. Yeah, I'm going to be excited to run over it and see if it's still standing. So excited for, being back in New Hampshire for a little bit and a more mountainous course.
Yep. And then other things you're scouting out, anything on the just looking for more races out there kind of bucket list, or kind of what's drawing your inspiration at the moment? Where are you looking?
Mainly going to stick to the Northeast, I think. Just whatever is convenient with my schedule. It comes down to, so, all the local races, I'll probably do Moreau again this fall. The pond sprint out in Willsboro is another small local race. So I'll stick local for a little bit and see what that does for me.
Nice. Right on. Well, great job getting out of the gates. Great job exploring. Great job just kind of pushing to see, I don't know, where things go in terms of distances and areas so far. It's pretty awesome. And so it'll be, I don't know, exciting to see how you continue to, I guess, grow into the space. So nice work on the win. Nice work on the course record. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, it'll be fun to keep tabs on you and hopefully connect with you at another race. If not this year, maybe I'll try to lure you into a couple more Red Newt ones for next year.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do Cayuga, so at some point.
Oh, right on. All right. Well, let's touch base on that because it'd be great to have you in the mix, and it'll be fun to see how Kilkenny shakes out for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you, Shannon. Thanks again for your patience and kicking back a little bit, and it was great to have you.
Thanks for having me. Have a great night.
All right. Talk to you later. All right. Thanks to all of you who maybe tuned in live with us for this round of Trails Collective Live. Thanks to those who may find it afterward. Thanks to any of you out there who reach out, cueing me into a certain event or a certain result, certain trail work opportunity, whatever it might be, just to let me know what's going on in your neck of the woods with the trail space. It really does keep us linked and connected, and I appreciate it. Thanks to all of you who take that next step to maybe share the posts or share articles or like things or like the channels. Really appreciate it. And to all those who take that next step further to support us as on the Patreon level. Very much appreciated. Do what we can to provide some voices to Beast Coast things, races, individuals, efforts, and particularly in the Northeast here, as well as tying in athletes who are running some pretty amazing races nationwide. Some pretty cool events coming up on the East Coast this weekend. I'm going to try to get out maybe and see if I can jump into the Pemi Loop this Friday. We'll see how that goes. I've got really no fitness, but we'll see. Good luck to all those running Ragged this weekend up in New Hampshire. I don't know how to actually pronounce it, so I'll mispronounce it here, but Conowa Trace down in West Virginia. Again, I know I just bludgeoned the name of that, but another one that was on the radar. But not sure what's going to tune in next week yet for the episode. But look forward to catching you again around this time. All right. Thanks again. And until then, see ya.